The baby's cries pierced through the bullet train's first-class cabin like shattered glass, desperate, primal, unrelenting. Every passenger felt it. The way the air grew heavier, thicker, dangerous. Because it wasn't just the crying. It was the pheromones. Min-jae Park sat in the private corner booth, jaw clenched so tight it could shatter steel. His 3-month-old son, Ji-hoon, writhed in his arms, tiny fists beating against his father's custom-tailored black suit. The baby's face was flushed crimson, drenched in tears, and nothing would calm him. But what paralyzed the other passengers wasn't the infant's distress. It was the alpha's scent. Dark, suffocating, volatile. Sandalwood and gunpowder rolled through the cabin in waves, sharp with the metallic edge of barely controlled fury. Min-jae's glacier blue eyes scanned each face with lethal precision. The traditional Korean dragon tattoo coiling up his neck seemed to pulse with every ragged breath. No one dared complain. No one dared even look. Because everyone recognized what he was: Apex Alpha. Mafia royalty. Predator. And beneath that impenetrable exterior, something no one would ever suspect. Panic. Raw. Unfiltered. Devastating. His son was breaking apart, and the most powerful alpha in the underworld was completely, terrifyingly helpless. 3 months. 3 months since Yunseo had bled out in his arms, her last words a whispered plea. Protect him. 3 months since Ji-hoon's cries had become the only sound that could break through Min-jae's iron control. The bottles didn't work anymore. The formula made him sick. And Min-jae's own volatile pheromones were making it worse. His son could feel his father's instability, feeding the cycle of distress. The pediatrician's words echoed in his skull. If this continues, we'll need to hospitalize him. Failure to thrive is. Min-jae had walked out before the doctor could finish. Now, trapped in this pressurized metal tube hurtling towards Seoul at 300 kilometers per hour, he was living his worst nightmare. His empire meant nothing. His reputation meant nothing. His son was suffering, and there was nothing he could do but hold him and try not to let his alpha rage tear through the cabin. The flight attendant approached with trembling hands, offering another bottle. Min-jae's glare sent her scrambling backward. That's when he felt it. A shift in the air. A different scent cutting through the chaos. Rain. Soft cotton. Something clean and impossibly gentle. An omega. Min-jae's head snapped up, instincts flaring. His eyes locked onto a figure 4 rows back. A young man in an oversized cream sweater and wire-rimmed glasses, dark hair falling into his eyes. He looked like a university student. Soft. Harmless. But Min-jae had spent 20 years reading people, and this one was wrong. The way he held himself too still. The way his eyes, sharp, calculating, haunted, tracked every exit. The deliberate looseness of his clothes couldn't quite hide the lean, coiled muscle underneath. This was no student, and he was staring directly at Ji-hoon with an expression Min-jae couldn't name. The omega stood abruptly, as if pulled by invisible strings. Min-jae's body went rigid, one hand instinctively moving to the gun holstered at his side. Every passenger between them shrank into their seats. Don't. Min-jae's voice was a low growl, barely human. Don't come closer. But the omega kept walking, each step careful, deliberate. His scent grew stronger, that rain-clean gentleness wrapping around the cabin like a bomb. Ji-hoon's cries stuttered. Hitched. I said don't. Min-jae's pheromones spiked, a warning that would send any sane omega running. The young man stopped 2 feet away. Up close, Min-jae could see the exhaustion carved into his delicate features, the shadows under his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly before he fisted them in his sweater. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried absolute conviction. Let me help. I don't need. Yes, you do. Those dark eyes met his without flinching, and Min-jae felt something in his chest crack. He's not just hungry. He's scared. He feels your panic, and it's destroying him. Truth. Brutal, devastating truth. Before Min-jae could respond, the omega closed his eyes and breathed. The change was instantaneous. His scent shifted, deepened, became something Min-jae had never experienced. A targeted pheromone release so specific, so intentional, it bypassed every defense Min-jae had. It wrapped around Ji-hoon like a blanket, soothing, maternal, impossibly safe. In Omegaverse culture, this was sacred. This was claiming. This was something only bonded mates did for each other's children. Ji-hoon's cries cut off mid-sob. The baby's head turned toward the omega, tiny hands reaching, grasping at air. A sound Min-jae hadn't heard in 3 months broke from his son's throat. A soft, contented coo. Min-jae's alpha biology screamed. Mate. Pack. Mine. His hands shook as Ji-hoon stretched desperately toward the stranger, his entire body straining. The omega's eyes flew open, and for a split second, Min-jae saw past the careful mask, saw grief, longing, and something feral that matched his own darkness. Then Ji-hoon made another sound, and the Omega's expression shattered. Without asking permission, he reached out. Min-jae should have stopped him, should have broken his wrist, should have done anything but watch as those gentle hands lifted his son from his arms. Ji-hoon melted into the Omega's chest, went completely, utterly still. His tiny fist curled into the cream sweater, and he let out a shuddering sigh that sounded like home. The cabin held its collective breath. Min-jae stared at the impossible scene before him, his son, peaceful for the first time in 3 months, cradled against a stranger who shouldn't exist, who'd just marked his child with Omega pheromones meant only for family. His voice came out raw. Wrecked. Who are you? The Omega's eyes met his, haunted, terrified, and utterly resigned. No one. But they both knew that was a lie. The silence in the first-class cabin was deafening. Hae-won stood frozen in the aisle, Min-jae's son, this dangerous man's child, curled against his chest like he'd always belonged there. Ji-hoon's breathing had evened out, tiny fingers still fisted in Hae-won's sweater, and the relief flooding through Hae-won's body was so visceral it hurt. He shouldn't be doing this. He'd promised himself he'd never use his Omega biology this way again. Never let himself become necessary to someone who could destroy him. But the baby's cries had shattered something inside him, and his instincts had moved before his brain could catch up. Around them, passengers stared with a mixture of awe and horror. An elderly beta woman clutched her husband's arm, whispering urgently in Korean. A businessman 2 rows up had his phone halfway out before thinking better of it. Because everyone in this cabin understood what they were witnessing. An unmated Omega, releasing parental pheromones. For an Apex Alpha's child. This wasn't just unusual. This was taboo. This was the kind of thing that started blood feuds in the old families, the kind of thing that got Omegas killed for overstepping their station or attempting to infiltrate powerful bloodlines. And Min-jae Park, because Hae-won knew exactly who this man was, had recognized him the moment he'd looked up, was staring at him like he couldn't decide whether to kill him or claim him. Sit. Min-jae's voice was soft, deadly, not a request. Hae-won's legs obeyed before his mind could protest. He sank into the seat across from Min-jae, still cradling Ji-hoon, hyper-aware of how the Alpha's glacier blue eyes tracked every micro-movement. Cataloging, analyzing, hunting. This close, Min-jae's scent was overwhelming, that sandalwood and gunpowder mixing with something darker, something that made Hae-won's Omega hindbrain scream contradictory warnings. Danger, safety, predator, protector. You're not a student. It wasn't a question. Hae-won kept his eyes on Ji-hoon, watching the baby's chest rise and fall. I didn't say I was. What are you? A weapon. A ghost. A mistake. Does it matter? Min-jae leaned forward, and the air pressure in the cabin seemed to drop. His pheromones spiked, not aggressive but claiming, wrapping around Hae-won and Ji-hoon like a net. You just did something that shouldn't be possible. You targeted your pheromone release with surgical precision. That takes training. Military-grade Omega combat conditioning, or, his eyes narrowed, private security. Hae-won's pulse hammered, but he kept his expression neutral. I just wanted to help the baby. Liar. No heat in the word. Just certainty. Min-jae tilted his head, studying him the way a predator studies prey. You're running from something. Someone. And you're very, very good at hiding. Too close. He's too close. But then Ji-hoon stirred, making a soft sound, and something in Min-jae's expression broke. He stared at his son, peaceful, safe, with such raw devastation that Hae-won had to look away. He hasn't stopped crying for 3 weeks. Min-jae's voice was barely audible. Not since his mother. He cut himself off, jaw working. The doctors say he's failing to thrive. That I'm making it worse. That my pheromones are too unstable, too aggressive. That he can feel my rage and he stopped. Breathed. You stopped it in 30 seconds. Hae-won said nothing. There was nothing to say. What's your name? It doesn't matter. It does. Min-jae's hand moved, lightning fast, and suddenly he was holding Hae-won's wrist. Not painful. Just absolute. You marked my son with your scent. In my world, that means something. Hae-won's heart slammed against his ribs. I didn't mean. I don't care what you meant. I care what you did. Min-jae's thumb pressed against Hae-won's pulse point, feeling the jackrabbit beat. In the old families, when an Omega releases parental pheromones for another's child, it's considered either a sacred bond or a declaration of claim. Either way, his eyes burned into Hae-won's. You're mine now. I'm not. You are. Absolute conviction. And I'm going to find out everything about you. But first, he released Hae-won's wrist and pulled something from his jacket. A business card, heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. You're going to have dinner with me tomorrow. Haewon stared at the card. Park Min-jae, CEO, Park Holdings. A phone number. An address in Gangnam. Nothing about syndicates or crime families, or the fact that this man's name was whispered in the underworld like a curse. I can't. You can. Min-jae pressed the card into Haewon's palm, closing his fingers around it. His touch was warm. Possessive. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. A car will pick you up. Text me your address. You don't understand. I understand that my son is sleeping for the first time in weeks. I understand that your scent is now woven into his biological memory. And I understand. Min-jae's voice dropped to something dangerous and intimate. That if I let you walk away, he'll scream himself into a hospital bed within 48 hours. The train began to slow. Seoul Station. Haewon should refuse. Should throw the card in Min-jae's face and disappear into the city's millions. Should remember every reason he'd left the underworld behind. But Ji-hoon made another soft sound, and Haewon's arms tightened instinctively. This isn't a request, Min-jae said softly. This is me telling you how this ends. You can walk out that door right now. But tomorrow at 7, you'll be in my car. Because you felt it too, didn't you? When you held him. When your Omega recognized what he needed. Yes. God help him, yes. The train stopped. Haewon stood carefully, passing Ji-hoon back to his father. The baby whimpered, reaching back for him, and something in Haewon's chest cracked. He walked toward the exit, the business card burning in his palm. Behind him, he felt Min-jae's eyes on his back. Hot, possessive, inevitable. Run, his mind screamed. But his body knew the truth. He was already caught. Haewon lasted 16 hours. 16 hours of staring at the business card on his tiny apartment's kitchen counter. 16 hours of telling himself he wouldn't go, couldn't go, that accepting Park Min-jae's invitation was walking straight into a trap he'd spent 2 years avoiding. 16 hours of hearing Ji-hoon's cries echo in his skull. He'd thrown the card in the trash twice. Retrieved it twice. The embossed lettering seemed to mock him. Park Min-jae, CEO, Park Holdings. So sanitized. So legitimate. Nothing about the rumors Haewon had heard whispered in the underworld. The apex alpha who'd consolidated 3 rival territories in a single blood-soaked month. The man they called Bingryong. Ice Dragon. The man whose son had fit perfectly against Haewon's chest, like a missing piece he hadn't known he'd lost. Stop it. Haewon pressed his palms against his eyes, willing away the phantom weight of the baby in his arms, the devastating relief of those tiny fingers curled in his sweater. He'd walked away from this life, from being used, from being necessary in ways that destroyed him. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. But Haewon knew before he even looked. The car will pick you up at 7 p.m. Don't make me come get you myself. MJ. No address requested. No polite inquiry about his schedule. Min-jae already knew where he lived. Haewon's hand tightened around the phone, heart hammering. He should run. Should pack the go-bag hidden under his bed and be on a train to Busan within the hour. Instead, he texted back a single word, fine. The response was immediate. Good boy. Haewon's entire body flushed hot. He threw the phone on the couch like it had burned him. What am I doing? At precisely 7 p.m., a black SUV pulled up outside his building. Not just luxury, armored. Haewon could tell by the way it sat too low on its suspension, the slightly too thick windows, the deliberate blacking out of any identifying features. 2 men in dark suits stood flanking the rear door. Earpieces. Concealed weapons that weren't concealed at all if you knew where to look. They weren't bodyguards. They were soldiers. The taller one opened the door without a word, his eyes flat and assessing. Haewon caught the edge of a tattoo on his neck, traditional Korean style, partially hidden by his collar. The same style as Min-jae's dragon. Oh! Haewon slid into the back seat, and the door closed behind him with a heavy thunk of reinforced steel. The interior smelled like leather and gun oil. Classical music played softly through speakers, something instrumental haunting. No one spoke as the SUV pulled into traffic. Haewon watched the city blur past, tracking their route with the automatic precision of old training. They were heading north toward Gangnam, but veering away from the main commercial district, toward the residential hills where old money built fortresses and called them homes. 20 minutes later, they turned onto a private road. No, it wasn't a restaurant, wasn't a hotel, wasn't anywhere public or safe or neutral. The SUV approached gates that belonged in a military installation. 12 feet of reinforced steel topped with cameras, so sophisticated Haewon could see the motorized tracking. Guards in tactical gear checked credentials. The vehicle was scanned underneath with mirrors. This wasn't wealth. This was war. The gates opened and Haewon's breath caught. The park estate sprawled across the hillside like a sleeping predator. All clean lines and dark glass, traditional Korean architecture merged with modern security design. Floodlights created overlapping fields of visibility. Haewon counted 6 guard stations. 8 cameras just on the approach. Pressure sensors likely buried in the manicured lawn. And everywhere, the subtle signs of violence held in check. Men with military posture. Motion sensors disguised as garden lights. The kind of defensive infrastructure that said, "We've been attacked before, and we're ready for it to happen again." The SUV stopped at the main entrance, where more guards waited. Through the mansion's windows, Haewon could see more people moving. Staff or soldiers, he couldn't tell the difference anymore. This wasn't the home of a CEO. This was the fortress of a warlord. The door opened. Min-jae stood at the top of the stone steps, hands in his pockets, wearing a black shirt that fit like sin and slacks that probably cost more than Haewon's monthly rent. The traditional dragon tattoo was fully visible now, coiling up his neck and disappearing beneath his collar. His glacier blue eyes tracked Haewon with the focus of a predator that had just confirmed its prey was exactly where it wanted it. He smiled, sharp, dangerous, utterly without warmth. "Welcome home." Home. The word hit Haewon like a physical blow. He'd been an idiot. A naive, sentimental idiot who'd let a crying baby override 2 years of survival instincts. Park Min-jae wasn't just wealthy. He was lethal. And Haewon had just walked straight into his cage. Min-jae didn't wait for Haewon to process the compound's defenses, or the armed guards, or the reality of what he'd just walked into. He simply turned and walked inside, the clear expectation that Haewon would follow. Predator behavior. Established dominance through assumption. Haewon's jaw tightened, but his feet moved anyway. Through marble halls lined with art that probably cost more than most people's homes. Past staff who kept their eyes down and their movements efficient. Up a sweeping staircase where Haewon counted 3 more cameras and at least 2 concealed panic buttons. Then he heard it. The crying. Ji-hoon's desperate wails cut through the expensive silence like a knife, and Haewon's Omega instincts screamed. His pace quickened before he could stop himself, overtaking Min-jae on the stairs. The nursery door was open. Inside, the room was beautiful, soft grays and whites, top-of-the-line everything. The kind of space designed by people who had unlimited money, but no idea what a baby actually needed. And in the center, in an elaborate crib that looked more like a piece of art than furniture, Ji-hoon thrashed and screamed himself hoarse. An older woman in a nurse's uniform stood nearby, clutching an untouched bottle, her face creased with worry and exhaustion. Haewon was moving before Min-jae could speak. He crossed to the crib, hands already reaching, then stopped himself. Forced his arms down. This wasn't his child. This wasn't his place. But Ji-hoon had caught his scent. The baby's head turned sharply, cries stuttering. His tiny arms stretched out, grasping at air, and the sound that came out of him was pure desperation. Recognition. Need. Pick him up. Min-jae's voice came from behind him, rough. Please. The please broke something in Haewon's resolve. He lifted Ji-hoon from the crib, and the baby immediately buried his face against Haewon's neck, inhaling in shuddering gasps. Haewon's Omega biology responded automatically, calming pheromones, gentle rocking, soft humming sounds he didn't remember making. Ji-hoon went limp with relief. The nurse made a soft sound of distress. Min-jae dismissed her with a gesture. When the door closed, the silence was deafening. He's lost 8 ounces in 3 days. Min-jae's voice was hollow. He won't take the bottle. Won't take formula. The pediatrician says if he doesn't start eating, we'll need to hospitalize him. Feeding tube. For nutrition. Haewon held Ji-hoon tighter, feeling the baby's 2 prominent ribs through his onesie. You lied to me. His voice was flat. Dangerous. This wasn't dinner. This was manipulation. Yes. The honesty surprised him. Min-jae moved to stand by the window, silhouetted against the city lights. Park Holdings is real. I do run a legitimate corporate empire. But that's not what keeps people afraid. That's not what built these walls. He turned, and his eyes were emptier than Haewon had ever seen them. I'm the head of the Park Crime Syndicate. 3rd generation. We control everything from Gangnam to Incheon, smuggling, protection, information. The kind of family that's been in the game so long, we have politicians in our pocket and judges on our payroll. Haewon said nothing. He'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. Yun Seo, Ji-hoon's mother, was the daughter of an allied family. Our marriage was political. Necessary. She was beautiful, intelligent, and she gave me an heir. Min-jae's voice cracked. She wasn't my mate. My alpha never recognized her that way. But she didn't deserve to bleed out on our bedroom floor, while rival syndicate members laughed. Oh, the Kong family wanted to send a message. They succeeded. Yunseo died 2 months ago. Ji-hoon has been inconsolable since. Min-jae's hands fisted at his sides. Until you. He crossed to where Hae-won stood, stopping close enough that his scent, sandalwood, gunpowder, grief, wrapped around them both. Do you know what parental imprinting is? Hae-won's throat tightened. Rare omega-child bonding. Usually only happens with birth parents or someone the child's biology recognizes as necessary for survival. Min-jae's eyes burned into his. It's happening to Ji-hoon. With you. Your pheromones have become his safe space. His need. And if you leave now, if I let you walk away, the trauma could permanently damage his ability to bond, to trust, to thrive. You can't just. I can. Min-jae's voice was absolute. Because I'll do anything to save my son. Anything. Even manipulate a stranger who was kind enough to help us. Hae-won stared at him, fury and understanding warring in his chest. Ji-hoon made a soft sound against his neck, and his omega hindbrain whispered, pup, safe, protect. 1 month. Min-jae's voice gentled. Stay for 1 month. Help him through the critical bonding period. I'll pay you whatever you want. Protect you from whatever you're running from. Give you resources, security, anything. And after you're free. I'll have him transition to bottles. You can disappear again. Lies. They both knew it was lies. You didn't just walk away from the Park Crime Syndicate. But Ji-hoon's tiny fist curled in Hae-won's shirt, and he saw himself in those desperate cries. Abandoned. Alone. Not enough. I want it in writing, Hae-won said coldly. Legal contract. Ironclad. 1 month, then I'm free. No retaliation. No hunting me down. Min-jae's smile was knife-sharp. Done. The contract arrived within an hour. 12 pages of legal terminology printed on heavy paper. Delivered by a lawyer who looked like he charged more per minute than most people made in a day. Hae-won read every word. Twice. 1 month of live-in childcare assistance. Full room and board provided. Compensation. 50 million Korean wons negotiable. Upon completion, all obligations terminated. No further contact required or permitted without explicit consent from Choi Hae-won. Park Min-jae guarantees protection from any and all threats during and after employment period. No mating claims, biological bonds, or permanent entanglements permitted. It was perfect. Too perfect. Hae-won looked up to find Min-jae watching him from across the study, Ji-hoon sleeping peacefully in his arms. The baby had refused to be put down after Hae-won held him, screaming every time Min-jae tried to separate them. Now he drowsed, small fists tangled in his father's shirt, breathing steady. Sign it, Min-jae said softly. I keep my word. Why do I feel like I'm signing a deal with the devil? Min-jae's smile was sharp. Because you're smart. He shifted Ji-hoon carefully, his large hands impossibly gentle. But there's something you need to understand. This contract, he nodded at the papers, protects you legally. From me. From my organization. But it can't protect you from them. Them. The old families. The traditional factions who still believe Omegaverse hierarchy is sacred law. Min-jae's eyes darkened. What you did on that train, calming an Apex Alpha's distressed child with targeted parental pheromones, that's not just unusual, Hae-won. In their world, it's either a sacred blessing or an unforgivable sacrilege. Hae-won's hand tightened on the pen. If they see it as sacred, Min-jae continued, voice dropping, you're considered family now. Under my protection. Bound to this household by biological imperative and cultural law. But if they see it as sacrilege, his jaw clenched. Then you're a threat to bloodline purity. An unmated Omega trying to infiltrate powerful genetics. And threats get eliminated. The room suddenly felt smaller. Colder. You're telling me I was marked for death the moment I touched your son. I'm telling you that you were marked as mine the moment you touched my son. The possession in his voice made Hae-won's Omega hindbrain shiver. And I don't let anyone take what's mine. Hae-won signed the contract with sharp, angry strokes. Taeyong found him an hour later, as staff showed him to the guest wing. The second in command was everything Min-jae wasn't. Warm smile, easy posture, the kind of face that made you want to trust him. Which meant he was probably twice as dangerous. Settling in? Taeyong leaned against the doorframe as Hae-won surveyed the suite. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting area. All decorated in soft neutrals that probably cost a fortune to look so simple. Is this where you warned me about betraying your boss? Hae-won asked flatly. Taeyong laughed. No, this is where I warn you about him. That made Hae-won turn. Taeyong's expression had gone serious. I've known Min-jae since we were kids. 20 years. I've seen him kill men without blinking. Seen him consolidate 3 territories through blood and terror. Seen him marry a woman he didn't love for political gain. He paused. But I've never seen him look at someone the way he looks at you. He barely knows me. He doesn't need to. His alpha does. Taeyong's eyes were sharp with warning. He hasn't scented anyone since Yunseo died. His biology has been unstable for 2 months, aggressive, volatile, dangerous. Then you show up and calm his son and him in 30 seconds flat. Haewon's stomach dropped. You're not just helping the baby, Taeyong said quietly. You're becoming his anchor, his balance. And when this month is over, when that contract says you're free to walk away, he shook his head. He won't let you go easily. Maybe not at all. The contract is paper. Min Jae is an apex alpha who just found someone his biology recognizes as necessary. No contract in the world can override that. Taeyong straightened. I'm not saying run. I'm saying understand what you've walked into. And decide if you're prepared for what happens when he decides you're not leaving. He left before Haewon could respond. Haewon stood in the center of the beautiful, expensive cage and felt the walls closing in. From down the hall, Jihoon's cries started. Desperate. Seeking. Haewon's feet moved before his brain engaged, following the sound. He found Min Jae in the nursery, trying every comfort technique and failing. The moment Haewon stepped through the door, Jihoon's cries cut off. The baby's arms stretched toward him. Home. Safe. Need. Min Jae's eyes met his over Jihoon's head, dark with gratitude and something far more dangerous. Mine, that look said. Already mine. Haewon took the baby, felt the immediate relaxation, the trust. And knew, contract or not, he was already trapped. 7 days. In 7 days, Jihoon had transformed from a failing, desperate infant into something that looked almost like a normal baby. He ate. He slept. He gained 3 ounces. And on the 7th day, he smiled. Haewon had been singing, something soft and wordless, more feeling than melody, when Jihoon's face had scrunched up in that particular way babies do. Then his mouth curved, toothless and perfect, and Haewon's heart had simply stopped. He'd looked up to find Min Jae in the doorway. Watching. Always watching. The apex alpha had been doing that more and more, appearing in doorways, lingering in hallways, finding excuses to be wherever Haewon was. His scent had started shifting too, losing the sharp edge of stress, becoming deeper. Warmer. The kind of alpha scent that whispered home and safe and mine to every omega instinct Haewon possessed. It was terrifying. Now, as evening settled over the estate, Min Jae appeared in the nursery again. Jihoon was down for the night, tiny chest rising and falling in perfect peace. We need to talk. Min Jae's voice was careful, controlled, which meant whatever he was about to say was dangerous. About you. Haewon's stomach dropped, but he kept his expression neutral as he followed Min Jae to the study. The door closed with a soft click that felt like a prison lock engaging. Min Jae moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed one to Haewon. I had you investigated. The glass froze halfway to Haewon's lips. Of course you did. His voice came out flat. Dead. Choi Haewon, 26 years old. Former elite Omega operative for the Choi crime syndicate. Min Jae's eyes were glacier cold and burning hot simultaneously. Specialization. High-value target protection and extraction. Nicknamed the Silent Wolf, because you could neutralize threats without anyone knowing you'd been there. Haewon set down the glass before his shaking hands could betray him. You were good. Exceptional. Youngest Omega ever to make senior operative status. Min Jae circled closer, predator instincts on full display. Then 2 years ago, you were assigned to protect Park Sung-min, a political target with information on 3 rival families. Don't. Please don't. The ambush came at a charity gala. 15 assassins. You took 3 bullets protecting him, chest, shoulder, abdomen. Nearly bled out on the marble floor while he walked away without a scratch. Haewon's breathing had gone shallow. He could still feel it sometimes, phantom pain lancing through old scars. Could still smell the blood. Still hear the screaming. You were in a coma for 4 days. When you woke up, the Choi family head came to your hospital room. Min Jae's voice gentled, and somehow that was worse. He thanked you for doing your job. Told you that you were replaceable but functional. Then he asked when you'd be ready to return to active duty. Stop. You walked out of that hospital 3 days later and disappeared. Changed your name. Enrolled in university under false credentials. Became invisible. Min Jae stood directly in front of him now, so close Haewon could count his heartbeats in the pulse at his throat. You were a weapon. And when you nearly broke, they didn't see a person. They saw malfunctioning equipment. Haewon's eyes burned. If you know all this, then you know what I am. Why bring me here? Why tie your son to someone who's broken? Min Jae's hand came up, cupping Haewon's jaw with devastating gentleness. Is that what you think you are? I know what I am. You're wrong. Min-jae's thumb brushed across Haewon's cheekbone, and his scent wrapped around them both, sandalwood and something raw, something real. You're someone who almost died protecting another person. Someone whose biology runs so deep toward caregiving that you put yourself between danger and innocence automatically. Someone who ran not because you were weak, but because you were strong enough to choose yourself. Haewon's breath hitched. You think I manipulated you because you're useful. Because you're a tool. Min-jae's eyes burned with something fierce. I brought you here because my son recognized what I'm only now beginning to understand. What? That you're not broken. Min-jae's voice dropped to something raw. Honest. You're healing. And maybe I am too. The silence stretched between them, heavy with truth. I watched my wife bleed out, Min-jae said quietly. Held her while she died. Promised her I'd protect our son. Then spent 2 months failing him every single day because I couldn't give him what he needed: softness, gentleness, peace. His hand was still cradling Haewon's face. You gave him that in 30 seconds. Not because you're a weapon. Because you're someone who cares even when it costs you everything. Haewon's walls were crumbling, and he couldn't stop it. Why are you telling me this? Min-jae's smile was devastating. Because I'm broken too. And my son needs us both. 2 weeks, and the Park estate had become something Haewon had never expected. Home. Not his home. He couldn't let himself think that way. But a routine so natural it felt like breathing. Wake at 6 when Ji-hoon stirred. Feed him while watching sunrise paint the windows gold. Morning play while Min-jae handled business calls, his deep voice drifting from the study. Afternoon naps where Haewon caught up on sleep he hadn't realized he'd been missing for 2 years. And everywhere, always, Min-jae's presence. Not hovering. Not controlling. Just there. Passing Haewon a bottle before he asked. Taking Ji-hoon for diaper changes with practiced efficiency. Their movements around each other becoming synchronized like dancers who'd rehearsed for years instead of days. It was dangerous. This ease. This rightness. On the 14th night, Haewon found Min-jae in the nursery, standing over Ji-hoon's crib with an expression of such raw longing it hurt to witness. He looks like her, Min-jae said quietly. Yunseo. The shape of his eyes. His smile. Haewon moved closer, unsure if comfort was wanted or welcome. But he has your stubbornness, he offered softly. Your strength. Min-jae's laugh was brief. Broken. I want him to know where he comes from. His mother's grace. His grandmother's fire. He turned, and his eyes were molten. But I also want him to know gentleness. Softness. How to be held without fear. You give him that. No. Absolute certainty. I give him protection. Power. A legacy built on blood and control. But you. Min-jae's hand lifted, almost touching Haewon's face before dropping. You give him peace. The air between them felt charged. Electric. There's a song, Min-jae said suddenly. My grandmother sang it. Traditional lullaby. I want him to know it. To carry that piece of his heritage. His jaw worked. Will you learn it? So he can hear it in a voice that means safety. Haewon's throat tightened. Show me. Min-jae moved behind him, so close Haewon could feel his body heat. His hands came to rest over Haewon's, guiding them to Ji-hoon's small back, teaching the gentle rhythm of patting that accompanied the melody. Then he began to sing. The language was Korean, the tune ancient and haunting. Min-jae's voice, rough from years of giving orders, demanding obedience, softened into something achingly tender. His breath ghosted across Haewon's neck as he taught each phrase, each rise and fall. Jaljar-a, Yuri-a-gi, he murmured. Sleep well, my baby. Haewon repeated it, his voice blending with Min-jae's. Their hands moved together over Ji-hoon's back. Their scents mingled, sandalwood and rain, gunpowder and cotton, alpha and omega creating something entirely new. Kum soj hengbok, Min-jae continued, his voice barely above a whisper now. Happiness in your dreams. Ji-hoon made a soft sound, settling deeper into sleep. They stood like that for long minutes, Min-jae's chest against Haewon's back, their hands layered together, voices twining around a melody older than either of them. I can't give him gentleness, Min-jae breathed against Haewon's ear. But you can. Then he stepped back, taking his heat with him, leaving Haewon's skin cold and aching. That night, after Min-jae had retreated to his office for late calls with suppliers in Japan, Haewon returned to the nursery. Ji-hoon had woken fussy, and Haewon sang the lullaby alone, stumbling over pronunciation, probably butchering the tones, but pouring everything he couldn't say into the melody. I see you. I'm here. You're safe. He didn't know how long Min-jae had been standing in the doorway. When Haewon finally looked up, the apex alpha was frozen there, one hand braced against the frame like he needed the support. His eyes were bright. Too bright. And his scent. God, his scent. It had changed completely. No more sharp edges or metallic stress. Now it was warm cedar and smoke, deep and enveloping and so intensely claiming that Hay-One's Omega biology responded with a full-body shiver. Mate. Alpha. Home. Min-jae's chest rose and fell like he'd been running. His pupils were blown wide, his alpha completely, utterly focused on the scene before him. Omega cradling his child, singing his grandmother's song, scent marking his nursery as theirs. For the first time since Hay-One had met him, Min-jae looked settled. Like something fundamental had clicked into place. Like chaos had finally found order. Don't stop, Min-jae's voice was wrecked. Please, don't stop singing. So Hay-One didn't. He sang while Min-jae watched with eyes that burned like blue fire. Sang while the alpha's possessive scent wrapped around them both like a claim. Sang while his Omega hindbrain screamed yes, this always in his rational mind whispered danger, trap too late. When Ji-hoon finally slept, Hay-One carefully laid him down. Min-jae was still in the doorway. Still watching. Still wanting. 16 more days, Hay-One said quietly. A reminder. A plea. Min-jae's smile was devastation. 16 more days until I stop pretending I can let you go. Day 21, and Min-jae was unraveling. Hay-One saw it in the way the alpha's eyes tracked him across rooms. Hungry, possessive, barely restrained. Felt it in how Min-jae's scent had gone from warm cedar to something darker, headier, thick with need. Caught him once, standing in Hay-One's room, holding one of his sweaters, breathing in the scent like a drowning man finding air. The staff noticed too. They gave Min-jae wider berths, spoke in hushed tones. Taeyong had pulled Hay-One aside that morning with a simple warning. He's close to breaking. Be careful. But Hay-One was breaking too. Breaking every time Min-jae's hand lingered on his lower back while they passed Ji-hoon between them. Breaking when their fingers brushed reaching for the same bottle. Breaking when he woke to find Min-jae watching him sleep from the nursery doorway, expression raw with longing. 9 days left on the contract. 9 days until Hay-One was supposed to walk away from this. The package arrived at sunset. Hay-One was in the nursery when he heard the commotion, raised voices, the sharp bark of orders. Then Min-jae's roar, so alpha-dominant that every Omega in the estate felt their knees weaken. Hay-One ran. He found Min-jae in the entrance hall, holding a man against the wall by his throat. The messenger's feet dangled inches off the ground, his face turning purple. Photos were scattered across the marble floor. Photos of Hay-One, in the garden with Ji-hoon, walking through the estate, sleeping in his room. How? Taeyong stood nearby, gun drawn, face carved from stone. Boss. He's just the messenger. I don't care. Min-jae's voice was barely human, his alpha pheromones flooding the space, so thick Hay-One could taste them. Tell the Kong family. Min-jae. Hay-One's voice cut through the rage. The alpha's head snapped toward him, eyes wild. Feral. Hay-One picked up one of the photos. On the back, neat handwriting, pretty Omega. Fragile bloodlines. Dangerous games. His hands didn't shake. They should have. But 2 years of being a weapon had taught him how to be still even when the world was ending. Let him go, Hay-One said quietly. He's not worth it. Something in Min-jae's expression cracked. He dropped the messenger, who collapsed gasping. Get him out. Now. Taeyong hauled the man out. Min-jae stood in the center of the scattered photos, chest heaving, knuckles bloody. His eyes found Hay-One's across the space, devastated, desperate, drowning. They know you're here. They'll come for you. I know. I'll kill them all. Every single one. I know that too. Min-jae moved then, crossing the distance between them in 3 strides. His hands came up to frame Hay-One's face, trembling with barely restrained violence. I can't, his voice broke. I've been trying to fight it. To give you your freedom. To let you go when the month is up. But I can't. Hay-One's heart hammered against his ribs. My alpha has chosen you, Min-jae breathed. I've been fighting it, but I can't anymore. You're mine. You've been mine since that train. Since you touched my son. Since you, he stopped, jaw working. You're mine. I'm not a possession. No. Min-jae's thumbs brushed across Hay-One's cheekbones with devastating gentleness. You're my mate. There's a difference. The word hung between them like a grenade. You don't know me. Not really. I know enough. I know you're brave and broken and beautiful. I know you sing to my son in the middle of the night. I know your scent is woven into every room of this house, and I can't breathe when you're not near me. Min-jae, I know that 9 days from now, when that contract says you're free, I'm going to beg you to stay anyway. Min-jae backed him against the wall, one hand braced beside Hay-One's head, the other still cradling his face. His scent wrapped around them both, possessive, claiming, desperate. Tell me to stop. Tell me you don't feel it too, and I'll let you go. I'll honor the contract. But if you feel even a fraction of what I... Haewon kissed him, crashed their mouths together with 2 weeks of suppressed need, 2 years of loneliness, a lifetime of wanting to be chosen. Min-jae made a sound like breaking and deepened the kiss, desperate, possessive, reverent all at once. His hands were everywhere, threading through Haewon's hair, spanning his waist, pulling him closer until there was no space left between them. His alpha scent spiked so thick with claiming pheromones that Haewon's omega biology sang with recognition. Yes. This. Always. When they finally broke apart, both panting, Min-jae pressed his forehead to Haewon's. Stay. Not because of the contract. Stay because this is your family now. I'm afraid, Haewon whispered. Afraid I'll lose myself again. Become just another weapon. Just another. Then I'll find you. Min-jae's voice was absolute. Sacred. Every single time. I swear it. You'll never be lost again. And Haewon, trembling and terrified and so desperately in love, believed him. Day 30. The contract was over. Haewon had torn it up that morning, standing in Min-jae's office while the alpha watched with eyes that promised forever. No more employment. No more boundaries. Just them, alpha and omega, building something that looked dangerously like family. Ji-hoon had gained 2 pounds. His laugh filled the estate. He called for Appa and reached for 1-1 with equal desperation. They hadn't completed the mating bond yet. That final mark, that permanent claim. Haewon wasn't quite ready. But soon. Soon. At 4:47 a.m., the world exploded. The first blast shattered the east wing windows. The second took out the main gate. The third, too close, rocked the nursery. Haewon was moving before conscious thought engaged. He had Ji-hoon out of the crib and against his chest in seconds, his body curling around the screaming baby like a shield. Gunfire erupted. Glass rained. Smoke filled the hallways. Min-jae burst through the door, gun drawn, blood on his shirt. Basement. Now. How many? 20. Maybe more. His eyes were pure alpha, cold, calculating, lethal. Kong and Choi syndicates. They've allied. Oh. They wanted Ji-hoon dead, eliminate the park heir, cripple Min-jae's power. And they wanted Haewon, either to reclaim their lost weapon or eliminate the bloodline threat permanently. Haewon's mind went quiet. Still. Cold. The soft, gentle caretaker who sang lullabies disappeared. The silent wolf woke up. Give me a gun, he said flatly. Min-jae's eyes widened. Haewon. Now. Something in his voice, in his scent, made the alpha obey. Min-jae pulled a backup piece from his ankle holster and handed it over. Haewon checked the magazine with muscle memory that had never left. 17 rounds. Good. Get Ji-hoon to the safe room. 3rd sub-basement, right? At Min-jae's nod, Haewon continued in that same deadly calm voice. I'll clear the route. You're not. I was elite protection before you knew my name. Haewon's eyes met his, no longer soft or haunted, but sharp as broken glass. Trust me, or we all die. Min-jae stared at him for one frozen heartbeat, then smiled sharp, feral, proud. Show me. They moved as one. Haewon led, Ji-hoon strapped to his chest in a carrier, gun sweeping corners with precision that made Taeyong's security team look amateur. When 2 Choi operatives appeared in the hallway, Haewon dropped them both. Double tap, center mass, no hesitation, before they could raise their weapons. Behind him, Min-jae's alpha pheromones filled the space with such dominance that 2 attackers simply froze, prey instinct overriding training. They died before they could move. They were perfect together. Synchronized. Where Haewon's smaller frame slipped through spaces, Min-jae's power held the line. Where Min-jae's rage burned hot, Haewon's cold precision cut clean. Alpha and Omega. Weapon and shield. Pack. The safe room door sealed behind them with a heavy clang. Ji-hoon wailed against Haewon's chest. Above, the battle raged, Taeyong's team pushing back, Park forces rallying. Min-jae pulled out his phone. Made a call. This is Park Min-jae. I'm invoking the Blood Declaration Protocol. Haewon's breath caught. Blood Declaration, the old ritual. The public claiming before all families. Min-jae's eyes found his as he spoke into the phone, his words broadcasting to every syndicate leader in Korea. Choi Haewon is my bonded mate. He is Pack Alpha, second parent to my heir. Anyone who touches him or my son will face the full wrath of the Park family. This is not negotiation. This is fact. The line went dead. Haewon stared at him. You just declared war on half the underworld. I declared you. Min-jae crossed to him, cupped his face. Every family will know. You're mine. Protected. Claimed. The mating mark. Will you accept it? Raw. Vulnerable. Not because of contracts or protection. Because you choose this. Us. Haewon looked down at Ji-hoon, their son now, not just Min-jae's. Looked at the alpha who'd found him broken and called him whole. Yes. Min-jae's kiss was claiming and reverent. Then he bared his neck, the ultimate submission from an apex alpha. Offering the bond as choice, not dominance. Haewon's teeth found the mating gland, and he bit. Min-jae's roar shook the walls. His alpha pheromones exploded outward, carrying the message to every creature above mine. Mated. Pack. When Haewon pulled back, his mouth stained with blood and claiming, Min-jae's eyes were molten gold. Forever, the alpha breathed. Forever. Dawn broke over the estate, scarred, smoking, but standing. Bodies were being removed. Damage assessed. The Kong and Choi forces had retreated when Min-jae's declaration spread, when they realized they weren't just fighting the Park family anymore. They were fighting a mated pair. Min-jae stood on the balcony, Ji-hoon drowsing in his arms. Haewon joined them, still blood-stained, the fresh mating mark visible above his collar. This is only the beginning, Min-jae said quietly. They'll come again. Haewon leaned into his alpha's side, scenting their son's peaceful sleep. Let them come. Their eyes met, Apex Alpha and Elite Omega, both deadly, both broken, both finally whole. We're stronger together. Min-jae's smile was knife-sharp. Promise and threat. Always. The war for the Park Empire had begun. But this time, the Apex Alpha had his mate. And the Silent Wolf had found his pack. Buckle up. End.